When Samuel and Ruth first tied the knot, intimacy was just easy. It flowed as naturally as breathing. Their days were filled with long, heartfelt conversations that stretched late into the night. When Samuel and Ruth first tied the knot, intimacy was just easy. It flowed as naturally as breathing. Their days were filled with long, heartfelt conversations that stretched late into the night. Gentle touches were a constant, a simple brush of hands, a comforting arm around the shoulder. Shared laughter echoed through their home, a soundtrack to their shared life. Even the quiet moments felt profound, a shared silence that spoke volumes about their deep connection. In those early days, love felt absolutely effortless, like a beautiful, simple song. But as the years rolled on, life started to get louder. The quiet melody of their early marriage was slowly drowned out by the noise of the world. The demands of work became more intense, with longer hours and increased pressure. Then came the children, a wonderful, chaotic blessing that reshaped their entire world. Responsibilities started to multiply, piling up like an endless to-do list. Slowly, almost without them noticing, the nature of their intimacy began to shift. It moved away from that deep, soulful connection and started to feel more like a routine, another item to check off the list. They were still a team, of course. They lived together. They prayed together. They planned their future together. They managed the household, raised their kids, and navigated life's challenges side by side. On the surface, everything looked perfectly fine. They were a successful couple, a strong family unit. But underneath that surface, something essential, something tender, was missing. A vital spark had dimmed. Ruth started to feel an emotional distance creeping in. It was a strange and lonely feeling. Samuel could be sitting right there beside her on the sofa, but she would feel as if he were miles away. She yearned for the connection they once had, the feeling of being truly seen and understood. Meanwhile, Samuel was struggling with his own set of feelings. He felt a sense of rejection, a quiet hurt that he couldn't quite put into words. He missed their closeness, but he didn't know how to bring it up without sounding selfish or demanding. He worried it would just add another pressure to their already stressful lives. And so, because neither of them wanted to hurt the other, they both stayed quiet. They buried their feelings, hoping that things would somehow get better on their own. But silence doesn't heal, it creates space. And in that silence, the distance between them grew wider and wider. The quiet that once felt so connecting now felt empty and cold. Their shared home started to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a shared space inhabited by two increasingly separate people. Then one evening, during a rare moment of calm after the kids were in bed and the house was finally still, Ruth turned to Samuel. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper, but it was filled with a world of longing. She said, "I miss us." It was such a simple sentence, just 3 little words. She wasn't talking about the bills that needed paying or the complicated schedules they were always juggling. She wasn't talking about the house or the chores. She was talking about us, the two of them, the core of their relationship that had gotten lost somewhere along the way. That one vulnerable, honest sentence was like a key turning in a long locked door. It opened up a conversation they had both been avoiding for far too long. As they started to talk, really talk, for the first time in ages, they began to realize something profound. They had let their definition of intimacy become far too narrow. It wasn't just about physical closeness, though that was part of it. True intimacy was so much more. They realized intimacy was about creating a space of emotional safety, where they could both be vulnerable without fear of judgment. It was about affection, the small, non-demanding gestures that say, "I'm thinking of you." It was about giving each other their full, undivided attention, putting down the phones and turning off the TV to truly be present. It was about choosing to connect, even when they were exhausted from the day. It was as simple as listening without rushing to find a solution and holding hands just because. With this new understanding, they decided to begin again. It wasn't a dramatic, overnight transformation. It was a slow, intentional process. They started by talking openly and honestly about their needs, their fears, and their feelings of loneliness. It was awkward at first, like learning a new language, but they persisted. They made a conscious decision to make time for each other, not excuses. They scheduled date nights, even if it was just an hour of uninterrupted conversation at home. They started to see that intimacy wasn't something that just happened. It was a garden that needed to be tended, watered, and protected from the weeds of a busy life. They learned to nurture their connection. Samuel made a point of telling Ruth how much he appreciated her. Ruth made sure to touch Samuel's arm when he was talking about his stressful day at work. They rediscovered the joy of simply being together without an agenda. And as that emotional closeness began to rebuild, the physical closeness followed naturally and effortlessly, just like it had in the beginning. It wasn't a duty anymore. It was a joyful expression of their renewed connection. As they intentionally invested in their intimacy, their trust deepened. The joy and laughter that had been missing for so long started to return, filling their home once again. Their marriage felt vibrant and alive again. And it wasn't because life suddenly became easier. The work was still demanding, the kids were still a handful, and the responsibilities were still there. The difference was that their connection became their anchor. They were no longer just navigating life side by side. They were navigating it hand in hand. Through this journey, Samuel and Ruth learned a powerful and timeless truth. A successful, lasting marriage isn't held together by duty, obligation, or shared responsibilities alone. It is held together by intimacy. An intimacy that is carefully protected from the distractions of life, consistently nurtured with time and attention, and deeply valued as the precious heart of the relationship. In choosing to rebuild that closeness, Samuel and Ruth didn't just stay married, they stayed connected. They rediscovered the us they had missed so much. Their story is a beautiful reminder that it's never too late to turn back toward each other, and that the most important investment we can ever make is in the connection we share with the person we love. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a like, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.